What's going on, DFS Army? It's Craig Bennett, aka Cash Keg here. Going to talk about the Turkey Day slate, Thanksgiving, a couple days here. We got a nice 3-game slate. I'm going to specifically talk about pricing for Fanduel this video. I'll do another one for DraftKings because just with the pricing and how things are set up, I thought I would just split them out. This is just a first look. If you're not a member of DFS Army, head on over there. Use promo code CashCake. Save yourself 20% off. We're going to have cheat sheets, all the content like we usually do on Sundays for the Thursday, Turkey Day, Thanksgiving slate. I'll be around all day on Thanksgiving, cooking my bird at home, not going to see the folks. So I'll be able to answer questions. Really like this day slate. You can't beat it. Food and football. It's definitely one of the best days of the year. So with that, we'll just dive right into here. First, let's talk about a little bit of injury news because it's going to dictate the slate a little bit. DeAndre Swift is questionable. If he plays, he's by far the best running back on the slate going up against Houston, one of the worst rush defenses in the league, especially if Patricia actually uses him like he did 2 games ago before he got the concussion. If not, then, we're going to get Adrian Peterson and Kerryon Johnson to split the backfield, which is not great. I would prefer Swift. He's definitely the better talent. So we got to keep an eye on that. On the same team, Kenny Golladay, he's questionable. Again, if he plays, it gives another weapon for Detroit. Maybe they can keep it a little closer. That spread, as we see right now, is Houston favored by 3, total of 51. So with that being a close spread, I would think 1 or 2 of these guys would play. Maybe both of them will suit up. We also look at Juju Smith-Schuster. I think he stepped on a flag and hurt his toe in that game. If he's out, it just boosts Deontay Johnson and Claypool a ton. I think they're going to have to throw the ball here against Baltimore. It's one of the lower scoring games, but I still think it's a spot we can get some value here out of these wide receivers. And then the big news, we found J.K. Dobbins and Mark Ingram are both out in COVID-19 protocol. So that means we're going to get all the Gus the Bus Edwards as the starting running back, and we're going to be able to get Justice Hill as his backup for real dirt cheap. So those guys, we know that the Baltimore team runs the ball. They are ranked 3rd to last when it comes to neutral pass rate. So they run the ball 63% of the time in the neutral situation. So we know they're a running team, and we're going to want a piece of that for sure, especially knowing those guys are out. We also have, we also know that David Johnson is out. So again, it's Duke Johnson. I've been kind of preaching the last couple weeks to stay away from Duke Johnson. Again, it's a great matchup. I just don't know on FanDuel if we really need to go there for that touchdown upside. Like I said, Houston is one of those teams that really big into the neutral pass rate. Through 11 weeks this year, they are a top 5 team. They throw the ball 58% of the time in a neutral situation. So they're a pass heavy team, and they've been a lot better since they fired Bill O'Brien. So once Bob's been gone, they've been a lot better team. And speaking of that same thing, Cobb is doubtful, so I don't see him going to suit up in this game. So we're going to see a lot more looks from Fuller and Cooks. And then if Stills is around, he could get some extra looks. And maybe, we're only 3 games. We got to look for these guys that can get in the end zone, or QT. One of those guys are going to see a little bump of targets, but Fuller and Cook should see more of a workload. Again, like I said, Stills is questionable, and if Cobb's out, QT would get a big bump. So that's really the big news. We got, I guess, Amendola is still questionable. So if Golladay goes, it's just going to really don't matter. It's going to be him and Jones. If Golladay and Amendola both sit, well, then we're going to see Marvin Jones as the number 1, and then probably Marvin Hall as the number 2. And then we could see a Cephas, somebody like that, grab the number 3. But Hawkinson will probably be a guy we'd want to target at the tight end position. But that's the big news. Again, the big one we're waiting on is DeAndre Swift, because I love that. It's almost a lock button play for me against that Houston run defense if he does play. And Patricia tells us that he's going to get a lot of run like he did a few weeks ago. So with that, let's just jump in here. Again, we'll use this is the DFS Army's domination station. We use this as our optimizer. Load all our custom projections. We'll have ownership up later today or tomorrow. So if you don't have a membership, head on over. Use promo code CashK. And if you don't mind, before I start this, if you're not subscribed to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up. Lets me know you want me to keep doing these. Later on today, after I do this FanDuel video and the DraftKings video, I think Aaron Friedman's going to jump on, and we're going to talk a little college football. We have a short 2-game Thursday slate and a massive Friday slate that we're going to break down. But also we have college basketball, and we offer both of these for DFS Army for one price, and that starts up on Wednesday. Talk to Razzle a little bit. He's our college basketball guy over at DFS Army. He might jump on with me today as well and break down this college basketball slate. I know we have had a lot of teams that kind of dropped by the wayside with the COVID, so we're kind of waiting to see where the slate settles in at, and then we'll knock out a quick video there as well. Excited. This is a great time of year where we have everything. Going to play a little bit more college basketball this year as NBA doesn't kick off for another month. So if you want to get your itch and some of that, head on over to DFS Army because we have you covered for college basketball as well. So with that, again, we're going to do this FanDuel. The first game that kicks off, one thing I love about Turkey Day, man, you can focus on one game at a time. The first one kicks off at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time, then 16:30, and then 8:20. So this first game is going to have a lot of goodness, like we talked about. It's Houston, 3-point favorites against Detroit here with the 51-point total. And then we got Dallas at home against the Washington football team with 46-point total. And then we have Pittsburgh at home against the Baltimore Ravens, and they're 4.5-point favorites with a 45-point total. So the totals kind of go down here. But we'll go position by position, just kind of talk about a few plays that I like. Again, just kind of first look. We're not going to know a ton until we get some of these injury situations. But first look here at quarterback. Deshaun Watson is definitely going to be top dog here, and he's priced like it. He's 8,700 over here on FanDuel. Again, like I talked about, Houston is a top 5 team in neutral pass rate, passing 58% of the time. They just, they shock for some people and beat the Pats, going up here, going into a situation where you're in a dome this time of year, kind of like, targeting teams in the dome. This has just got all kinds of fantasy goodness on it. I'm not scared of Detroit at all. He gets it done with his legs. Love Deshaun Watson here. Lamar Jackson, again, it doesn't have his top 2 running backs. He's looked like garbage really the whole year. It's really hard to get too excited about playing Lamar Jackson. He's just struggled throwing the ball a ton. And so maybe Pittsburgh will spy him and kind of make him beat him with his arm because I think that's the way to beat Baltimore and Lamar Jackson is just, hey, beat me with your arm because I haven't seen it all year. Talking about a major fall off this year, it's pretty surprising to see. So I'd have more Deshaun Watson than I would Lamar Jackson, even at 8K. Ben Roethlisberger at 7,700 is interesting. Again, they are a top 10 team. They throw the ball 52% of the time in neutral pass rate situations. So at 7,700 though, it's real hard for me to get there when I can go up 1,000 more, when I think we have the savings here on the slate. I think it's a situation where I just have a lot more Deshaun Watson. Matthew Stafford, 7,200. That's a fair price for him. And again, a situation where if they get down, he has to throw the ball a little bit more. I have no problem there, especially if he gets his weapons back in Galladay. I think that really helps him. They don't have to just key off on Jones. So 7,200 is a fair price. And then it comes down to the scrap heap against each other. Andy Dalton and Alex Smith. Andy Dalton 6,800, Alex Smith is 6,700, so they're very close. I would just rather take Andy Dalton here. He looked pretty good against Minnesota. I don't think you really need to go here at all, honestly, on this slate. But if you would, I would lean on the Andy Dalton side. He just has way better weapons, and I just prefer to have the better talent. And again, this NFC East is such a dumpster fire of a team that division that anyone can still win, which is insane. So all these teams are still in it, and I just am going to lean the Cowboys at home here. Let's head over to the running backs, and Ezekiel Elliott, 8,500, top of the heap here on price. Again, neutral situations, we have Dallas running the ball around 52% clip, so they're like middle of the pack here. It's not a great matchup against that Washington D line. Like I said, if Swift plays, Swift is 7,200. If we see that DeAndre Swift suits up in this game at 7,200, he is my favorite running back on the slate. If he doesn't, again, we have Adrian Peterson at 5,400 and Kerryon Johnson at 4,900. Adrian Peterson's probably your better FanDuel play because you're looking for touchdown upside here. Kerryon Johnson's probably a better DraftKings play. But again, there are a bottom two defense in the league against the run. So you're going to want a piece of that. Again, I hope that Swift plays. I might just lock button that guy in. Antonio Gibson, 6,800. Looks great. If he's going to be out there on the slate, you have to have a lot of love there. I mean, he's getting a lot of run. It's just let me see here. Last game, he had 16 carries for 94 yards and a touchdown. We did have 2 targets, 1 reception for 10, but that's what really J.D. McKissick's in. He's been in that pass-catching role. McKissick's more of a DraftKings play for me. I want those touchdowns, and they're going to give the ball to Antonio Gibson inside the goal line, inside the red zone. We saw Washington was up a ton, so I think that's where J.D. McKissick didn't get a ton of targets last game, because before that he had 15 and 14 targets, which is a ton for a running back. Last game he only had 4 targets for 3 receptions, 26 yards. Did run the ball 6 for 43, but his touchdown equity is not that high. So again, McKissick, even at 5,600 on a 3-game slate, you probably want a little bit of him, but I definitely want more Antonio Gibson on FanDuel. James Conner, 6,700. He's going up against that Baltimore run defense. Again, I think you can look at other areas. I don't think you need to go him. They've run the ball 13. He ran the ball 13 times against Jacksonville, which is one of the worst rush defenses in the league, for 89 yards. Had 3 targets, 3 receptions for 10. Didn't put up a ton of fantasy points, 11 fantasy points, man. He's got to get in the box there. So, again, around the same price point, I'd rather have Antonio Gibson if we're comparing, or Swift. So Connor's just not doing it. And the problem with Connor is he's just not getting the goal line looks. What they're doing is Benny Snell's kind of took over that role. If you watch last game with Pittsburgh, they brought in Snell right at the 1. He had 1 attempt and got that touchdown. So again, that really hurts the upside of playing a James Conner here on FanDuel. So, Benny Snell is 5,000 over here on FanDuel. So he's someone that we can look at, if we think he can get in the box a couple times. But again, that's more of a 150 play, and you just want like 5% of him. Again, Gus the Bus Edwards here at 5,200. He's going to be super chalk on this slate. Like I said, we talked about at the beginning of the show with the injuries, or not injuries, but the COVID-19 protocol, both out of Ingram and Dobbins. So Gus Edwards at 5,200 is going to be a very, very chalky running back. Even going against a tough Pittsburgh run defense, that's just a great price for him, and someone that we probably want to look at getting in our lineups. Justice Hill, again, is 4,500. He's going to be the backup. Maybe they go with the hot hand, and if he gets hot, we want some Justice Hill in our life. So you got to have both those guys in your player pool. Edwards, more of the cash play. Justice Hill, more of the deep tournament, massive top-heavy GPPs, that you're putting 150 in. You look at a Justice Hill. I really don't have any interest in a Peyton Barber, these guys down here. That's about where I'd sit. So Justice Hill would be the guy in this range down here I like on FanDuel. Like I said, Kerryon Johnson's only in play for me if Swift is out. I think Swift's going to play, but we will see. So, again, recap running backs here on FanDuel. Swift and Gibson are probably my favorite up top ahead of Elliott and Connor. I don't love a whole lot of Duke Johnson, even though I think he's going to be popular. But you're going to want a little bit of him. And then down here, Gus Edwards is the chalk play at this range. And then we look Tony Pollard, 5,100. Again, Peterson is only in play for me if Swift is out. So it's Swift and Gibson for me up here at the top. So let's head on over to wide receivers. Terry McLaurin is sitting at 7,900, top salary on the slate. I don't remember the last time we've ever seen that. But, if he's good to go out there, he's been producing each and every week. Last week was a little bit of a down. Had 7 targets, 5 receptions for 84 yards. Had 2 red zone targets. Didn't do much with them. But he's just consistent, man. He's going to consistently get you 7, 8, 9, 10 targets, put up 80 to 100 yards. He's safe. Especially against this Dallas team. If we think they're going to be behind, I have no problem with F1 McLaurin here. So Will Fuller, we talked about him a little bit. He is 7,400. If we do get, we do know that that we have Cobb out. So Fuller's going to get a bump against this Detroit team. Again, you're going to want to stack up Watson with a couple of his pass receivers. So we have Cooks at 6,500 and a Fuller at 7,400. I like both of them. One thing, though, since Bill O'Brien got fired, we've just seen some great consistency out of Cooks when it comes to his targets and reception. So last week wasn't too great. Did see a couple red zone targets, but 5 targets, 4 receptions, 85 yards. But the game before that, he saw 8 targets, 6 receptions, 39. Against Jacksonville, he had 9 targets, 3 for 83 and a touchdown. So I want a piece of one of these guys. Galladay, again, 7K. This is what I mean. It's really easy to get up to Deshaun Watson when you see these receivers at these prices. They're not extremely high, so it's very easy to build a lineup with playing some of these guys. I think you're going to see a lot of this game stack in this first game just because it has much more fantasy goodness than the other ones, more defense-wise. So, and then we get down here to Amari Cooper, 6,900. I prefer CeeDee Lamb at 6,200, but they're both very well in play in the slate against Washington. I think they're going to have to throw the ball a little bit more in Washington than run it. So I have no problem. I think Lamb is the guy that I want, though, over Cooper. But, again, they have the weapons. You're going to want a piece of one of those guys. And then we talked about Pittsburgh at the beginning of the show here with Juju might not suit up here. And even if he does, it's still been the Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool show, and especially Deontay Johnson, man. He's just been, since beginning of the year when he got hurt a little bit, so consistent. Saw 16 targets last week, 12 receptions, 111 yards. Didn't get in the box, but, man, you got to love that volume. 3 games in a row with double-digit targets. Saw 11 against the Bengals for $116 and a touchdown. And then against the Cowboys, he saw 10 targets, put 677. So been extremely a lot of volume there for Johnson. Again, Claypool for a little bit cheaper, 6,600. I think that's where you're going to go, even against a Baltimore team. We know Pittsburgh, has been throwing the ball, like I said, 52% of the time in neutral settings. I think they're going to continue to do it, especially against this defense. And I have a lot of interest in here. I think, and coming off that big game, Deontay Johnson's probably going to be your cash game guy right here. Having, thinking about just GPP mindset real quick, Amari Cooper for 100 more or Claypool for 200 less, you're going to get probably half the ownership on those guys. So you got to look around there. We talked about Cooks a little bit, have to have some love there. CeeDee Lamb, again, love it. Marvin Jones, it could actually benefit him, if we do get Galladay back. He is 6,000. Maybe it takes some pressure off him a little bit. We haven't seen the big Marvin Jones Jr. game. We always see like one a year where he puts up a massive, 40-point spot. Maybe this is the slate, it's indoors. If this becomes a shootout, which it could, you'd want some Marvin Jones Jr. in life. Marquise Brown, what an absolute disappointment. He's talked a lot about kind of, wanting to get out of this situation. I don't blame him. He's just, we talked about how he just can't get the ball. Lamar Jackson's been so bad throwing the ball to him that the guy's got talent. He's a burner, man. He was so much fun to watch when he was in college with Oklahoma, and to see this last 4 games have been pathetic. 3 targets last game, 0 catches. Just horrible against the Titans. 2 games before that, 6 targets, 2 receptions, 14 yards. Pathetic. Colts, 5 targets, 3 for 38. Pittsburgh, this is the same matchup that he had 4 weeks ago. 2 targets, 1 reception, 3 yards, and a touchdown. It was in the red zone. It's hard to even touch the guy. So I don't know, man. At 5,700, there is upside, but I just, are you going to keep trying to go there? It's tough. Like Lamar Jackson, your quarterback, and not getting you the ball. He seems to be locked in on Andrews. It's a tough ask, even though that price tag is extremely nice on him. He's just been such a disappointment, and it's not so much him. It's just his quarterback not getting the ball. Gallup, 5,500. You probably have more upside there, honestly, at 5,500. He's had 5 targets, 2 receptions for 29. We look at 3 games ago, he had 12 targets, 7 for 61. So I'd want a splash of Gallup. I wouldn't run more than 2 of the 3 Cowboys receivers in the same lineup, though. I'd definitely set a rule for that. Snead, 5,300. It's crazy to say, but Willie Snead at 5,300 has actually been a better wide receiver and targeted more than Marquise Brown, a guy with less talent but getting more looks. 7 targets, 3 for 23. Saw 3 red zone targets against the Titans. Only had 1 for 9 yards, but I'm just saying it's there. Against the Patriots 2 weeks ago, 7 targets, 5 for 64, and 2 touchdowns. And those 2 touchdowns were both in the red zone. So Snead has actually been a more productive wide receiver for daily fantasy over this whole year, honestly. So because of his name sake, 5,300, he's 400 cheaper. People probably aren't going to go there. I would rather look at Snead. That's probably where I'll end up going. If we look at what he did against Pittsburgh, he was 7 targets, 5 for 106. I'll have some Snead in my life, and I'll have more Snead than I will Marquise Brown until he shows me something. I've been saying, okay, well, this is the week for Brown. I've been doing it myself. Been like, hey, this is the week for Brown. And then you watch Lamar throw the ball, and he can't get him down the field, and they're not throwing short passes to get him in space, which they should be. So it's been Willie Snead, all these slant routes, and it's so frustrating. And I just got to say, okay, I'm not chasing that anymore. I'm going Willie Snead. Amendola, we talked about. Hall. If Amendola is out, then we can look at maybe a Hall. This whole situation for these guys down here really depends on the Galladay news. Cephas, again, is only in play if Amendola is out and we get these other guys out and we have to play these guys down here. James Washington, again, 5K. He can get some deep looks. And if we do get Juju out, he'd probably slide into that 3rd wide receiver role, and he would have a lot of interest in him at 5K down here. Down here, Des Bryant, looking at him at 4,800, don't think I have a whole lot of love there. It's, he had 5 targets last game, 4 for 28. So maybe at a cheap tag, again, that's going to hurt Brown a little bit as well. He's going to look for guys that are within 10 yards. He just can't throw that deep ball very well. Seems to hit the tight end, but that's about it. So maybe we'll have a little bit more interest in Des Bryant here. Again, Kenny Stills, if he plays, he's going to have a little bit more action here. playing some of the Cobb snaps. We talked about him a little bit. Same with QT. So both those guys will definitely get a bump. And, Kiki QT at 4,500, that's a place we can get some savings on this slate, and why I think it's so easy to play, just to go up to Deshaun Watson, which has just been balling. I mean, Kiki QT last game saw, 4 targets, two receptions, 10 yards, and a touchdown. Again, Cobb actually played a little bit last game, so he is your cheap guy I'm looking at down here. Don't really have interest in many of these other guys. You can look at a Sims at 4,600. I don't mind that. But it would be QT and then maybe some Dez Bryant. And then these Washington receivers aren't looking too awful bad. Let's head on over to tight end over here on Fanduel. We know the cream of the crop here is definitely going to be Mark Andrews. He is 6,800 over here on Fanduel. He's just got the highest upside on the slate. He had 7 targets for 5 receptions, 96 yards, and a touchdown against Tennessee last week. Now, 4 games ago when he went up against Pittsburgh, 6 targets, 3 for 32. Didn't do a whole lot, but he has the upside to get there. So maybe they lean a little bit more on the if Pittsburgh ends up putting more guys in the box to stop the rush defense, or maybe they don't. Maybe they're like, okay, we'll let him beat him because we just have Gus the Bus there. But he's got to be in your player pool. He's got the highest upside here. TJ Hawkinson, again, I think you're definitely going to want to look here, and it really depends on Galladay news. If Galladay's out, I want a lot of Hawkinson. He had 7 targets, 4 receptions for 68 yards last game at 6,000. He's going to be extremely popular in that game. Eric Ebron, another guy of interest in 5,700. He's a guy that, if we don't see Juju, maybe we see a few more targets go his way. He had 7 targets last game, 4 receptions, 36 yards, and a tutty. And his touchdown was in the red zone. So they are looking for him in the red zone. So I think Eric Ebron could be a guy to get off some of this chalk on Hawkinson and Andrews. So I like Ebron here. Dalton Schultz, again, 5,300. That's a little bit more than I would like to pay for him. But, with Andy Dalton around there, he did have a touchdown in the red zone. Had 3 targets last week in the red zone. Had total of 6 targets, 4 for 25 and a touchdown. In the red zone, though, saw 3 targets, 2 for 12 and a tutty. So, Dalton's looking for him in the red zone. You got to have some Schultz. Then we come down to the Houston tight ends. What are you going to do? Akins, Fells. I guess if you want to look at a Pharaoh Brown here, but Akins and Fells, you got to throw them in your pool. I would much rather run Schultz over Akins, but Jordan Akins at 5,200 saw 6 targets last game, 5 for 83. That's one of his biggest games of the season, but you're going to want a little bit of piece of that. If we look over here at Fells is 4,900, had 2 targets, 2 receptions for 29. So Akins is the guy here. So I'd want a piece of him. If they're both healthy, I would really lean on Akins, not too much of Fells. And Logan Thomas, we got to talk about him. He's 5K over here on FanDuel. Had 5 targets last game, 2 for 6 yards. Again, they didn't need him too much because they leaned on the run. They were up a bunch against the Bengals. Really hoping that Joe Burrow can come back. And, man, it was tough to see him get smashed like he did. He's going to be out a while. I think he had both an ACL and an MCL tear. So that guy, man, I feel bad for him. Screw the Bengals for not getting that guy an offensive line and hurting an extremely awesome talent like that. But that's not here nor there on this slate. But Logan Thomas, again, I think I'd rather go Akins or Schultz than Thomas, but he's sitting right there at that price tag. Then the defenses. One thing you got to remember on a 3-game slate, do not be afraid to play a couple guys against your defense. You're just looking for sacks. You're looking for turnovers, maybe a pick 6, run one back to the house. So if you're going to pay up here and pay for Washington defense for 4,800, don't worry about running maybe CeeDee Lamb in that lineup with the Washington football team. Maybe the Washington football team gets a bunch of sacks, holds them down, but CeeDee Lamb gets in the house in the end zone twice. Well, Washington could still be in that nut lineup if they do get enough sacks, interceptions, and whatnot. So all I can say is defenses, plug them in last and something like this. That D-line for Washington is going to get pressure on the Cowboys. The Steelers, definitely 4,700 are definitely in play. We've talked about Lamar Jackson's struggles throwing the ball. So that's where I would look at, even the Cowboys 3,300 again. It's Washington. It's Alex Smith. He's probably good for at least one turnover. So they're basically all in play for me. If I had to stay away from one of them, it would probably be Detroit. But I would just mix and match these guys. Again, don't be afraid when you're setting your rules in the Optimizer nomination station to run a few guys against your defense. But with that, again, this is Craig Bennett, aka Cash Cake, with DFS Army. Use that promo code Cash Cake. Get in here. We're gonna have all the same cheat sheets, everything. If you got any questions, you can come into our VIP chat group. I will answer questions, and it's gonna be a fun turkey day. If you don't mind, hit that subscribe button for me. Hit that thumbs up on this video, and we will keep knocking these out for you. And with that, I appreciate you. Out. Deuces.